Hey, how's it going on Monday, July the 15th, 2024? I wrote a book on Lou Gehrig, and I just finished doing 17 videos on his remarkable career. His box scores and stats from 1923 to 1939. This video is Lou Gehrig recap his accomplishments, okay? Did you know that Lou Gehrig had a 20-game hitting streak in 1928? That was his best. He had 777 multi-hit games, 2 or more hits. His best year was 69 multi-hit games in 1927. That was a good year. Whew. He had 1 4-homer game. That was in 1932. He hit 3 homers in a game 3 times. He had 41 2-homer games. Babe Ruth had 72 of them. 7 times in 1934 he hit 2 home runs in a game. He had 555 2-hit games. His best year was 51 2-hit games in 1927. That year, whew. He had 201 3-hit games. His best year was 22 3-hit games, 1931. 4-hit games. Lou Gehrig had 53 of them. He had 8 4-hit games in 1930. 2 runs scored games. 2 times he scored, 363 times he scored 2 runs in 1 game. His best year was 43 times he did that in 1931. 3 runs scored in a game. How many times for Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig? All right, I'll get to Babe Ruth. I'm going to compare the 2 of them. Lou Gehrig scored 3 runs in a game 91 times. He did it 13 times in 1930. 4 runs scored in a game. Lou Gehrig 15 times. He did it twice. 2 4-run games. 1929, 33, 34, 35, and 36. 5 runs scored in a game. Lou Gehrig did it 3 times. 1936, he did that twice. 5 runs scored. All right, how about this? 2 runs batted in a game. He did it 304 times. 2 RBIs. He had 2 RBI games 33 times, 1931. 3 runs batted in a game. How many times? 118 times. His best year was 16 times he had 3 runs batted in a game, 1934. How about 4 runs batted in a game? He did it 59 times. How about that? 9 times in 1931, he had 4 runs batted in a game. How about 5 runs batted in a game? 27 times. 4 times in 1927, he had 5 runs batted in a game. You want 6 runs batted in a game? How many times for Lou Gehrig? 5 times. 6 RBIs in a game. How about 7 runs batted in 1 game? Lou Gehrig did it 7 times. Twice in 1934. How about this? 8 runs batted in 1 game. Lou Gehrig 3 times did that. Did it twice in 1930. 8 runs batted in a game. How about this? 12 300 batting season. 300 or more batting. His batting average. 8 200 hit seasons. 100 runs scored in a season 13 times. 100 RBI seasons 13 times. 300 total bases in a season 8 times. And he holds the record 400 total bases in a season 5 times. Lou Gehrig, how about that? Now here's something I want to do. I want to compare Lou Gehrig versus Babe Ruth versus Ty Cobb in the hitting streak. The best for Lou Gehrig was 20. Babe Ruth had a 26, and Ty Cobb had a 40. So Cobb gets the edge there. Multi-hit games. I said that Lou Gehrig had 777. Babe Ruth had 810. He played longer, 22 years, where Lou Gehrig played 17. And then Ty Cobb holds the record, 1,261 multi-hit games. Okay. 4 homer games, though. Lou Gehrig has 1. Ruth and Cobb don't have 1. Lou Gehrig gets the edge there. 3 homer games. Gehrig had 3 of them, but Ruth had 4, so he gets the upper edge. Cobb only had 1. How about 2 homer games? Like I said, Lou Gehrig had 41 of them. Babe Ruth 72. Cobb only 4. 2 hit games. I said Gehrig had 555. Ruth had 600 of them, so he gets the edge. But Cobb outdid them all. 838 2-hit games. The 3-hit games, Gehrig had 201. Did you know that Babe Ruth had 196? Gehrig gets the edge over Ruth in 3-hit games. Of course, Cobb, he had 327, so he outperforms both of them. 4-hit games. Did you know that Gehrig had 53 and Ruth only had 23 4-hit games? Cobb had 82 of them. 5-hit games. Gehrig did not have a 5-hit game. Ruth had 6 of them. Cobb 13. 6-hit games. Gehrig and Ruth did not have a 6-hit game, but Cobb had 1, so he gets it there. 2 runs scored in a game. Gehrig 363, Ruth 416, Cobb 378. So as far as scoring a 2-run game, 2 runs in a game, Ruth gets the edge. 3 runs scored in a game. Gehrig had 91, Ruth 104, Cobb 97. So Ruth gets that one. 3 runs scored in a game. 4 runs scored in a game. Gehrig did it 15 times. Ruth 11 and Cobb 13. Gehrig gets the edge on scoring 4 runs in a game. 5 runs scored in a game. Gehrig 3 times. Ruth once, Cobb twice. Gehrig gets the edge on 5 runs scored in the game. None of them had 6 runs scored in the game. How about 2 runs batted in a game? Gehrig 304 times. Ruth 287. And Cobb 324. Cobb played 24 years, so he gets the edge. But Gehrig beat Ruth in 3 runs, 2 runs scored, 2 RBI games. You follow that one? How about 3 RBIs in a game? Gehrig 118 times, Ruth 185, Cobb 98. So Gehrig beat Cobb in 3 runs batted in the game, but Ruth beat both of them with 185. 4 runs batted in a game. Gehrig 59 times, Ruth 70 times. 4 runs, 4 RBI games. Cobb 34. Ruth gets the advantage. 5 runs batted in a game. Gehrig 27, Ruth 17, Cobb 12. Gehrig gets the edge in RBIs. 6 runs batted in a game. Gehrig 5 times, Ruth 7, Cobb twice. Ruth gets the edge. 7 runs batted in a game. Lou Gehrig 6 times, 7 RBIs. Ruth 4. Cobb did not have a 7 RBI game. Gehrig gets the edge. 8 runs batted in a game. Like I said, Gehrig had 8 of them. No, he had 3 times. Getting ahead of myself. 3 times. Gehrig, 8 RBIs in a game. Ruth and Cobb did not have an 8 RBI game. 400 batting seasons. Ruth and Gehrig did not have one. Ruth came close, 393. Cobb, 400 batting seasons. He gets the edge. 300 batting seasons. Gehrig had 12. Ruth had 17. But Cobb outperforms 23 times. Edge to Cobb. 200 hit seasons. This is interesting. Gehrig 8, Ruth only 3, Cobb 9. Edge, Cobb. 100 runs scored seasons. Gehrig 13, Ruth 12, Cobb 11. You would think that Cobb would have scored more runs, but he didn't. As far as 100 runs scored seasons, he had 11 of them. Gehrig gets the edge 13 times. 100 RBI seasons, Ruth and Gehrig tie with 13 of them. Cobb only 7. 300 total bases seasons. Gehrig 8, Ruth 9. He gets the edge. Cobb only had 4. And of course, the 400 total base seasons. Gehrig 5, Ruth 2, and Cobb did not have a 400 total bases season. So Lou Gehrig, he played 2,198 games if you include the postseason games. Ruth played 2,544. So that's a difference of 346 games Ruth has over Gehrig. Yet Gehrig beat him in a 4-homer game. He beat him in 3-hit games. He beat him in 4-hit games. He beat him in 4 runs scored games. He beat him in 5 runs scored games. He beat him in 2 runs batted in games. He beat him in 5 runs batted in games, 7 runs batted in games, and 8 runs batted in games. And he had more 200 hit seasons. He had 1 more 100 runs scored seasons. And he had more 400 total base seasons. How about that? Gehrig did outperform Ruth in certain areas. Of course, Ruth outperformed Gehrig in many other areas. Homers, doubles, so forth. How about Lou Gehrig versus Ty Cobb? Lou Gehrig, 2,198 games. Cobb, 3,051. That's a difference of 853 games. Yet, Gehrig beat Cobb in a 4-homer game. He beat him in 3-homer games. He had more 2-homer games. He had more 4-run scored games than Cobb. He had more 5-run scored games than Cobb. He had more 3 runs batted in games than Cobb. He had more 4 runs batted in games than Cobb. He had more 5 runs batted in games, 6 runs batted in games. He had more 7 runs batted in games. He had more 8 runs batted in a game. He had more. He had more 100 runs scored seasons than Cobb. He had more 300 total base seasons than Cobb. He had more 400 total bases seasons than Cobb. And he had more 100 RBI seasons than Cobb. But Cobb beat Gehrig in a lot of other categories. Total hits, 400 batting seasons, doubles, triples, singles, so forth. So according to my analysis, the top 3 baseball players of all time, the greatest, the top 3. Babe Ruth 1, I can prove it with all the accomplishments and comparing him with a matchup with Gehrig. He beats him. And Ruth also beats Cobb in overall total accomplishments in the period of time and the games and the homer output, slugging on base. Number 2, I would say Ty Cobb is ranked number 2. He beats Gehrig because he has more categories where he beats him in, even though I just listed all the times that Gehrig had more output than Cobb. But overall, with a 24-year career, total base hits, career batting average, you got the doubles, triples, singles, so forth. Cobb outperformed Gehrig, but just slightly. I'm putting him number 2. And then I'm going to put Lou Gehrig number 3 as the greatest of all time. He's better than Ted Williams, I'm sorry, as far as the output. Better than Jimmy Fox, Roger Hornsby, Hank Greenberg, Willie Mays, Henry Aaron. I matched them all up. I wrote a book on it. Baseball matchups. Gehrig outperformed those other guys. So I'm going to put him number 3. All right, that does it. What do you think of the recap of Lou Gehrig? What a player. What an accomplished career, 17 years. If he had just played 20 or 22 years, his numbers would have been even greater. He would have had 2,500 runs scored, 2,500 RBIs. He would have had 600 to 50 to 700 homers. His batting average may have gone up, and he would have had over 3,000 hits, probably 3,500 hits. If he had played like 5 more years. He stopped playing at 36. Multiple sclerosis got him, and he died 2 years after he stopped playing. He died at 38. Oh, man. Lou Gehrig, incredible. All right, breaking news. I'm done with Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, and Lou Gehrig. I've done all the videos on their box scores and stats through their careers. Who's the next player I should do? I was contemplating Henry Aaron, Willie Mays, box scores, stats. Aaron, Mays, Williams, Fox, Hornsby, Greenberg, maybe Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio. I was thinking of all those guys. Even Tony Gwynn I was thinking. But I've come to the conclusion that the next guy I want to cover, his remarkable career, his stats, his accomplishments, and box scores. I want to look at his every game that he played. By going to Baseball Reference, look at every game he played through his career. Who's the guy I'm talking about? Stan Musial. Stan the Man. 1941 to 1963. 23-year career, 3,630 hits, 330 career batting average, 1,815 hits at home, 1,815 hits on the road. Stan the Man Musial. I'm gonna get to him next. Stay tuned for that video. We will talk to you later. Officially and respectfully, I am out.